Hello, welcome to Khel TV. Our next guest on the Beyond the Score podcast is a household name in sports broadcasting. Having called many iconic moments in both Indian and world football, Joe Morrison is best remembered by fans in the subcontinent as the host of C2K Countdown to Kickoff, the matchday show on 10 Network that covered Champions League, UEFA Europa League, and of course I-League back in days. Hi Joe, how are you doing? How lockdown is treating you?
Good, very good, very good. I hope everyone is safe and happy and healthy in this crazy world that we live in right now.
So are you following Indian football since you stopped working with the broadcaster here?
Well, there's been no Indian football, has there, since March, February, something like that. So
that means
not this year, obviously.
Right?
But yes, certainly since, I still try and get over to one of the ISL games at least once or twice a year. I doubt that's going to happen this year, but yeah, I do. And I follow quite a lot of the games, and the games that I can't see, I'll try and see if I can see the highlights or the goals or stuff like that. But yeah.
And of course, we are still watching you nowadays on the Facebook for the LaLiga broadcast in subcontinent.
Facebook watch with LaLiga, yeah.
How was that experience? Working with a social media giant for a broadcasting of a football league?
It's a great experience. It really is. It's been a challenging experience, and it's been a really interesting experience as well, Ashish, because as you well know, 80% of in the Indian subcontinent, 80% of people are consuming sport and other TV content on a mobile phone or on an iPad or tablet or on a small device. So, trying to change what I've been in TV for 20 years, traditional TV, linear TV, and trying to change my mindset to understand how people are consuming content now has been really eye-opening and really exciting as well, because I love the big screen experience. That's where I'm from. That's what I grew up with. But the modern generation, it's a completely different experience, and they want it in a different way as well. So, I know we'll talk more about it, Ashish, as we go on through this interview. But yeah, fascinating, exciting, and it's the future. It's as simple as that. It's the future.
Yeah, nowadays, we remember as a teenager, we got the mobile phones when we passed our school or we entered the college days. Nowadays, I see small children, 5th class, 6th class, they have their own mobile phone. So, of course, I think mobile is the future, and that's where we're moving into it. And that's how we are also trying to make a space in the digital scenario for Indian football through Khel now. And we are glad that you have taken the time out to join us. So
you're doing a great job, Ashish, a great job. And I must say as well, I want to support all of the portals, all of the digital platforms. Anyone that is doing anything that supports Indian football, I will support, because you know what? We need more voices like yours.
Okay. So now coming back to Indian football, what do you feel right now, on the current state of the Indian football? ISL is now top league. I-League has been now kind of made the second league. Mohan Bagan has joined the ISL. So what is your view on that? Just, overall view before we move into the details.
How long have you got? So here's the thing. I don't care what the top league is called. I don't care if it's the Indian Super League, the ISL. I really don't care. The most important thing to me is that it's a league. It is a league format, a league system, and not this stupid Mickey Mouse knockout competition that they get to at the end of a league season. I've never understood that. I know why they wanted to do that, because everyone wants to follow the IPL model. Plus you had IMG involved, to an American conglomerate who, base all of their their models, if you like, on the way American sport is done. And there's a lot of knockout format in American sport. Or playoffs, let's call it playoffs, but it is Mickey Mouse. So to me, it doesn't matter whether it's ISL, I-League 1, I-League 2, whatever the name would be, as long as the top tier is a league and that you can do promotion and relegation. So it's great that they've now said, right, okay, you can do promotion and relegation. I think it's after, after 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, so in next 3 years, we will have team coming from I-League, and then they will have promotion and relegation. First promotion will happen for a couple of years, then the relegation will also start.
Yeah, so there are certain fundamentals in football, Ashish, which, and I'll tell you why I'm so passionate about this, and I'll tell you why it's so important to me. Because what happens in the league system, professional football leagues in India, has a very, very big effect on what happens with the national team. And at the end of the day, what we all care about, I think you'll agree, Ashish, and what everyone cares about in India is what happens with the national team. Is the national team improving? So if the best team in India, as happened, 2 seasons ago, when Bengaluru finished the season 10 points clear of Chennai, and then they lost the final, and Chennai went into the AFC. How is that rewarding and promoting Indian football in Asian football competition? Tell me how that helps Indian football. So that's how stupid the system is.
I think so they also heard you. Now this season they have changed the rule, by the way. So now they're giving more importance to the club who is finishing on the league stage. For example, Goa, who finished topped on the after the league stage, they are now qualified for AFC Champions League group stage. And of course, then you have final, semi-final and final, and the winners also get the AFC Cup spot. So I think they are moving into that, because everybody thought it back in 2014, you need that extra push in Indian football to bring that money, to bring that glamour in. Maybe because we Indians are fan of, say, Tadka, we like when there are lights and action. So we needed that in Indian football, especially to grab the eyeballs. I feel we have the eyeballs now. And now you see the decision they have been taking last 2 years. For example, as you said, the league stage champion now is going to the Champions League, not the winner. And hopefully, what I heard from our sources, in couple of seasons, you might get opportunities when there might not be any playoffs or finals, So they are moving towards that.
So here's the thing. And look, there are so many things that IMG Reliance and the Indian Super League have done right. But there are also so many things that they've done wrong. And I totally agree with you. In the early days, they needed a bit of hype and hoopla, and they needed to get some names in. I understand all of that. I get that. And you got to remember, in the final days of the I-League before the ISL, the product on the pitch of I-League was improving massively. However, what was happening off the pitch was still terrible. It was like going back 50 years. Contracts for players weren't great. There was no marketing whatsoever. The TV broadcast of 10 Sports, as it was at that time before it was taken over by Sony Entertainment Networks, was terrible. It was really shockingly bad. The quality of it bad, the production quality was bad. So they needed to reinvent it. I understand that. But the direction that they went in, and paying players ridiculous sums of money, superstars who, was it Freddie Ljungberg? Was it Freddie Ljungberg that only played 20 or 30 minutes or something of, was it Freddie Ljungberg? Yes, for Mumbai over the entire season because he was permanently injured. I mean, there was things that they did which were totally unsustainable and which were totally crazy and didn't make sense to me. Now, fast forward to today, excuse me, and you've got a situation whereby we still have the Mickey Mouse playoffs, but that's not the biggest issue. The biggest issue is the teams are not playing, they're not playing enough games, in my opinion. If you go to the final, I think it's 21 games, is that right? So if you go to the final. If you don't go to the final, it's what, 17 games?
So that was like that. So AFC, what we have told ISL in AFF that from this season onwards, you need to have 26 league games. And what we are told, and we reported this also, that ISL and AFF were planning 3-legged ISL for the league stage. Every team play 3 games. instead of two against each other, so that they can fulfill the requirement for AFC Champions League. Because if you want to play in Champions League, you need to play at least 26 games. So they discussed this new structure. Sadly, COVID happened. Now we are back to again, 18 games, league games now. And what we are told that they're going to increase team next season again, and then hopefully we'll have this three-legged format where one team play against each other 3 times, so that they can fulfill the 26 game requirement for Champions League. So games are also increasing.
It's not a perfect system, Ashish, but great. It's better. I mean, that's what they do in Scotland, because there are so few teams in the Scottish Premier League. they play home, away, and home, and the next season they play home, away, and away. So, so it's not a perfect system, but I'll tell you why that's important. It's important for a couple of reasons, and I'll come on to the second one in just a minute. It's important because the players are not getting enough games, number one. So when they go and play international fixtures, they don't have the same amount of experience as their contemporaries from other nations who are playing leagues which have played 26 games in their season, 30 games, 38 games in their season in some cases. So the players, the national team players, and for the club players to be successful in AFC, need to be playing as many games as possible. That's number one. Number two is, the more games you do play, Ashish, the more opportunity it gives peripheral players, like say a young player that's just come into the squad. When you're playing that many games, you can give the young player some game time. Sometimes it's forced, because a player in that young player's position has come out with injury, so you can put him in, you have to put him in and play him. Sometimes, however, it gives the manager more breathing space to put a player on for 15 or 20 minutes. When you have such a short season with club owners that are hiring and firing coaches, all they care about is putting the best and strongest players out for those 17, 18 games and just getting as far as they can to survive, the coach to survive. So when you do a longer season, a coach can afford to lose a match and still win the league.
Yeah.
But when you have such a short season, Ashish, a coach, if he loses 1 game, 2 games, you're way down the bottom of the table. They don't have that.
That happened with Chennai FC last season. They won the ISL before, John Gregory, and he had a bad start. So they basically, I think they discussed earlier also, he wanted to left earlier, but they requested him to stay, and then eventually he left by his own. He felt that he can't make any difference, and then they hired Owen Coyle from England, and he took Chennai from the bottom of the table to the ISL final. So we don't get much time to react, and you have to react quickly sometime. And of course, as I said, coaches does not get time to react also, because you have game every 4 or 5 days. So you can't make those tactical changes also, because you're just doing recovery sessions and then playing matches or traveling. You're not getting much time to train.
So for the foreign players, that's not important, because their technical skills are of such a high level that it doesn't matter. But for the Indian players, and particularly the young players, they need coaching sessions. They need to be coached. And you're absolutely right. At the beginning of the ISL, when the games were being played back to back, you couldn't coach a young player, because it was literally travel, game, recovery, travel, game, recovery, travel, game, recovery. There just wasn't enough time to coach the skill set of young players, or players that needed work, maybe more senior players that needed work on a particular aspect of their game.
So that's also another point which we are told that, FSDL is planning to move games into the Friday, Saturday, Sunday and Monday slots. This is of course pre-COVID. Now COVID have changed all the discussion of having 26 games, having game on the weekends, So they were discussing these things, and I think they understand that these are the important points, because these are the same feedback is given by coaches to the league also, So that's why they are slowly making these changes, and I think they also understand they can't make changes all of a sudden in one go, They're trying to build a product.
Here's the thing, Ashish. Here's the thing, and this is the excuse that I will not accept from anyone involved in Indian football. People keep saying to me, "Oh, we're making progress." Yes, Indian football is making progress. I totally agree. But the speed of progress is too bloody slow, Ashish.
For our size of our country.
It's too slow for a country that is plus 100 in the world, that is kicking around 18, 19 ranking in Asia, and that ranking is more important than the FIFA ranking. Everyone talks about the FIFA ranking. I don't care about India's FIFA ranking. I do care about India's AFC ranking, and I'll tell you why a little bit later on. But the problem is that progress has to be so fast. Right now, the development of players and the coaching of players takes time. You can't turn a player who is inexperienced into an experienced player in 1 week. That just doesn't happen. It takes time. However, what you can do, Ashish, is the decision makers can make decisions quickly. So make your decisions quickly. Don't sit on decisions for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. The things that they're doing now in the ISL should have been done 4 or 5 years ago. But they've sat on those decisions, and that boils my blood.
Yeah. So I think let's see how they do it. And now the situation of COVID is not helping us also. So you just talked about India's ranking in FIFA and AFC ranking. So what are your thoughts? Stephen took the team in 2015, and he tried to build a particular group of players. He never changed them. And he helped us. He took India to the Asia Cup. We missed 2015 edition and we went to 2019 edition. And we won the game in Asia Cup. I don't know from how many long years, and we defeated Thailand, of course, who have better league system than us, and they were favorite, and we defeated them, and I think we did okay. And what are your thoughts on that? And especially then after Stephen left, after Asia Cup, Igor Stimac has taken over. We have not performed well in the World Cup qualifiers. We lost against Bangladesh, lost or draw, I think, against Bangladesh. So your thought on that? And
draw, yeah.
Draw. And of course, we are now hoping to qualify for Asia Cup again. So your overall thoughts on the national team progress in last 5-6 years under Stephen and then Igor Stimac?
So here's the thing. It's a great question, Ashish. The other two teams that were in their group in the Asia Cup, so it was Thailand, UAE, and Bahrain, was it?
Bahrain.
Third team?
Yeah.
Now, I watched all 3 games, and when India were offensive and played to their strengths, they did really well. They did fabulously against Thailand, obviously got the win. Against the UAE, they were unlucky not to get a draw out of that game, in my opinion, because I saw that game in Abu Dhabi. And then I went to Sharjah to watch the
Bahrain-India game.
And Stephen made a couple of mistakes, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Number one, they weren't offensive anymore. They were on the defensive, and India is just not good enough. And when I say not good enough, I mean mentally not strong enough, not good enough to defend for 90 minutes. They were always going to lose that game from the first 5 minutes. If they'd been offensive like they were against Thailand, if they were offensive like they were against the UAE, they would have got something out of that match. And I'll tell you why. Because sometimes, Ashish, offense is the best form of defense. If you can put your opponent on the back foot and make them think twice, you deny them the freedom to play free-flowing football. Bahrain didn't have to worry once about an attack during that game. So you had Sunil Chetri on his own. So that was one mistake that they made. Tapa,
I think, he was dropped. He was dropped for Pranay Haldar. And Pranay Haldar not gave any good performance that match.
And I'll tell you why. Of the midfield, the Indian midfield, Tapa, I think he needs a bit more coaching and he needs a bit more game time and a bit more experience and a bit more development. But I have never seen anyone in the current Indian setup in midfield who has got the composure on the ball, on the back foot, defensively as Tapa. He's a real cool cucumber when he's under pressure with the ball. And that's important. So if you'd had him in that midfield, if you changed your strategy to offensive and you had Tapa in midfield, you would have had a bit more control in the game and it would have made Bahrain think twice about coming forward and you might have got the point, the draw. Instead, when you sat on the back foot, and I know how a lot of these teams play around the Middle East, when their tails are up, Ashish, they are devastating.
Yeah.
When you put them under pressure, quite often they crumble. And they were never put under pressure, Bahrain. Never, ever, ever were they put under pressure, Bahrain. They were it was literally like, come and attack us for 90 minutes and see what you can get. So, you know, was the penalty unfortunate? And some people will say, oh, bad luck, penalty, you know, et cetera, et cetera. It was a matter of time. I'm amazed that the penalty didn't come in the 70th minute or the 60th minute. I think my expectation of India, and I said this to a few of the players at that time, my expectation of India in that Asian Cup, look, they were never going to go to the final. Let's just be honest and realistic about that. But they should have gone to the knockout stage from that group. I think they were good enough to go to the knockout stage from that group. Now, coming back to Stephen Constantine, one thing he has to be given credit for, Stephen, is for bringing new blood into that team and supporting them. You know, giving them the opportunity. It's very easy for coaches, especially when they're under pressure, and coaches are always under pressure, especially national team coaches. It's very easy to bring a young player in. He doesn't quite perform quickly enough and therefore throw him out again. But Stephen supported the young players that he brought into the side, and that team needed some new blood. You had too many players in the team when Stephen took over who were not too old in terms of age, but they were too old in terms of their football mentality. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You know, the game has moved forward. They hadn't moved forward. They had picked up too many. It's very hard to change habits the older you get, Ashish. Trust me. I know.
No, as an Indian football fan, we understand, you know, we have seen Indian players hitting sixes and 8 runs from the wing when they crossed ball to the second stand behind the goal post. And you talk about Thapa. Thapa is the modern midfielder, a new generation of footballer who's playing for India since under 14 days, you know, and he understands how modern football is played. So talking about Stephen gave near about 15 to 20 debut when he took it over 2015, you know, and then he selected his core team. There are some fans complained that he did not give some players who performed well, but I think he made his mind that what is the core of his team and what kind of players he need. And I think if you compare his overall performance throughout 4 or 5 years when he was here, I think India did well. And as you said, we deserve.
Yeah. I don't think he did a bad job. I would never say that. Like, you know, in the same way we were talking about the ISL and FDSL, he got many things right. He got many things wrong. I mean, the things I would question was Stephen. I thought his coaching was very strong. I thought his management was not great. And the reason I say that was when he came back in and he picked 4 captains. Was it 4 captains?
That was my next question.
And demoted Sunil Chetri, who, I don't care what anyone says, still is, and I haven't seen anything that suggests anything different over certainly the short-term future. The best player that India have, to demote him was not good man management, because Sunil Chetri is not an awkward character. He's a great guy on the field. He's a great guy off the field. He's inspirational. He's a leader. You know, so just to make a statement by dropping him, I don't think was good man management, and told me a lot. And I think as well, tactically, sometimes when you came up against these teams like the Bahrains, you know, we were talking about the Asian Cup, I think he could have made different decisions. So, you know, if I was to, I would maybe give him a 5 out of 10, you know, if you were to.
That was my next question of the rating.
He wasn't bad, but there were things that he could have done better.
Also, you have to consider that the time he came in, you know, we were between of ISL and I-League. It was not easy to schedule matches in Indian football calendar, you know, and you're not getting many friendlies initially. And that changed when we moved into the Asia Cup, you know, slowly the calendar got better and we started getting games. So, and as you said, national team coach does not get chances to coach their team. So he wanted longer camps so that he can get his philosophy in. So I think, maybe 5 is a bit harsh, but I think he did overall well if you consider
yes, you're right. It's
external situation, atmosphere around him.
It's a thankless job, Ashish. And at the end of the day, you know, the biggest compliment I'm going to pay Stephen is that if you ask me, did he take Indian football forward in those, how long was he there? 5 years, was it?
So he came in 2015, left in 2019, so 4 years.
Yeah, 4 years. So did he take the game forward in those 4 years? Absolutely, he took Indian football forward in those 4 years.
Yeah, and what about Igor Stimac? What are your initial thoughts on him?
So, well, we haven't seen enough of him. All we've seen is how many games has Igor been involved in?
We played King's Cup in Thailand. We have played, I think, two or three games. I will just get the and then we played one tournament in Ahmedabad. We have got 3 games, and then we played these World Cup qualifiers, in which we have not performed the way we should have performed.
Yeah. So. I don't know. I think it's still too early to judge Igor. I went to see the game in Oman.
Okay.
India against Oman. There were times when I thought the Indian team should have had better structure and better composure. You see, the thing is, Ashish, that I say this all the time. You can have a player who's tremendously talented. When you put him under pressure against an opposition, if that player crumbles, then it doesn't matter about his talents because he can't perform. He can't handle pressure. You can have another player, Ashish, who is maybe not as good, but under pressure, he can deliver. Well, I want the players who can deliver under pressure. I don't want the players who are brilliant in the ISL, and then when it comes to the national team and you're playing China's and North Korea's and Bahrain's and UAE's, they just turn to jelly. I don't need that kind of player. So I think Igor is maybe trying to, find out the mentality of a few players because he's changed a few players. And the other thing as well is, we were talking about Stephen Constantine having a difficult job. Igor has a difficult job because he's got to take the team on again to another level. He's got to, push everything forward. And I don't think the depth of pool of talent is there in Indian football. I really don't. At Asian level, I'm talking about. I just don't think there's enough players to choose from that have the amount of talent that can handle the pressure and have some sort of experience because of the reasons that we said at the beginning of this interview, i.e. they're not getting enough game time with their clubs in the ISL. That's the problem.
So talking about India has just won one match under Igor Stimac. It's against Thailand Kings Cup. We played a draw against Bangladesh and Afghanistan, which all the fans feel that we need to defeat SAF team, South Asian team,
correct,
which we were doing under Stephen. And I remember, I don't know you remember not, Wim Kovermans, a Netherlands coach, when he came in 2012 or 13, he also wanted to, implement that passing football style, Dutch football style in India under Robben. And we started struggling against Nepal, Bangladesh, Maldives, and all. And and we had very bad record against these teams during his stint. So
Stop, Ashish. You can only play tiki-taka football if you have players who can play tiki-taka football. So implementing a style is total nonsense at this level. When you go up to Champions League level and the teams like Bayern Munich and Paris Saint-Germain and all the rest of it, you can put in any style you want because the players are so talented, they're so experienced and they're so good, Ashish, that you can tell them to play long ball, short ball, tiki-taka, it doesn't matter. That's how good, that's how the quality. India needs to be playing regularly against opposition that is equal or preferably better, higher. And they need to be challenged constantly at that. So to do that, you've got to build a momentum, and to build a momentum, it's just win. It's not about a style. If you've got players that can play in that style, we're talking about Tapa. Yeah, I know that if you play that style with Tapa in your midfield, it would work. But there are other players in that team who can't pass a ball sideways 5 yards under pressure.
Yeah.
Under pressure and find one of their own players. So what's the point in playing out the back if you've got players in your defense who are not comfortable playing 5 yards out the back under pressure?
And
you're going to lose.
Yeah. So I do lots of these videos, with our Khel fans, and one of my opinion is that why India don't have under 23 team, or a B team. So we have under 19s, under 16 who just get active during the qualifiers for the 2016 under 16 AFC Championship or under 19 AFC Championship. Same way, we just have under 23 team when we just have qualifiers. I personally believe we need a strong under 23 team, and where we can implement this style before passing those footballers to the senior team, so that senior team coach have less work to do compare what is there right now. And we don't have any B team or under 23 team playing regularly football, we just get active during the tournaments.
Your key point is regularity. That's your key point. And I've said this, so what has been fabulous and has been real progress is the setting up of junior leagues and having this progression of players and hunting for talent, scouting for talent across India. That has been brilliant over the course of the last 5 years. However, it gets to a point, Ashish, where all of this talent goes off a cliff because there's nothing else. If you've only got 2 leagues, right? All right, 3 if you consider I-League 2. But wait a second, your ISL team's only got 10 teams in it. So you've got a limited number of teams. If you're bringing this flood of talent through because you've increased scouting, you've increased the number of junior clubs, you've increased the number of junior leagues or baby leagues as they call it. If you've got all of those things in place, then you've got a huge flood of young players coming through and making this progress and starting that climb. And then they get to here and there's not enough professional clubs for them. So they go off a cliff. Not every player, Ashish, is ready and developed at 16 or 17 years old, especially in a place like India. So they have to continue their progression, and to continue progression, they need to have opportunities to play either professional, preferably, or semi-professional. And too many of them are being lost. There's far too many players, excuse me, that are being lost to the system. And they've never thought about this. Yay, we're doing more scouting. Great. We're looking for more talent. Great. More baby leagues. Great. More coaching at youth level with better coaches. Great. And then what do you do? Then what do you do with the talent? Once you've found the talent, what do you do with the talent? Still, Gurpreet Singh Sandhu is the last player to go out on a long-term contract to Europe.
Yeah, and we will come on this on the later because I want to discuss more on that also.
Oh. Still.
So, hoping that FIFA is going to, change the World Cup number of teams going ahead. There are talks of having 48 teams, having 8 teams from Asia. Do you think India can make it to maybe not 2026 or maybe 2030 or 34? Do you think we have a chance at this rate?
No. Simple as that. No. And anyone who says otherwise, Ashish, is talking nonsense. They don't know what they're talking about. And I'll tell you why. Because, so this is what the setup is going to be. It's going to be 8+1 for AFC, for the Asian group. So there'll be 8 teams that go through to the new enhanced World Cup, the new
plus 1 playoff spot.
Plus a playoff spot against one of the other
mostly South America or North America.
Yeah, against one of the other right. So to have a chance, Ashish, to have a chance with that, you have to be in the top 10 in Asia. And like I said at the beginning of this interview, where is India? They're constantly knocking around 18, 19. They've been down as low as, is it 12 or 13, something like that at one point, but they've never really broken through that. India needs to be 10 and below to have a very real chance of going to a World Cup. A very real chance, a realistic chance, not a fantasy chance like you hear politicians and sports ministers and people from FDSL and all of that bullshit, Ashish. They need to have a realistic chance. They've got to be hovering around. By the way, they might be able to get away with 11th and have a good run in the qualifiers, but they need to be the standard of quality of 10th in Asia minimum, in my opinion. Now, yes, I would like to see them 9th or 8th or 7th. Okay, but you can get, if you're that level and that quality, you can get a good run and get some luck and all that kind of things and qualify for the World Cup. There's no one wants to see them qualify more than I do, but it has to be realistic because India getting the World Cup and hosting the World Cup is also equally far away.
Yeah.
There's certain standards that have to be met for India to host a World Cup. And everyone, some people talk about infrastructure. Yeah, things would need looked at because the football stadium in India right now is shockingly bad. That never in a million years would stadiums in India qualify for FIFA rules, regulations, standards. So that's one, infrastructure. The other as well is FIFA looks at revenue generation. So, you have to also consider the commercials of it. Would India be able to deliver it used to be, I don't know what it is now, but it used to be you had to deliver 2 billion net revenues to FIFA for a World Cup. Now, you've probably heard all the rumors that Qatar in their model couldn't deliver 2 billion, but they have said that however much it's short, if it's 1 billion short, we'll just pay the difference. Russia is supposed to have done the same, allegedly. So, it doesn't matter. Those are two countries that can pay the shortfall. Could India, if they could only generate 1 billion in revenues, deliver the other 1 billion out of government funds and finances? Not possible. And even if it was possible, you're living in a democracy and people would challenge it and they would say no, this is not allowed. We have hospitals that we need to improve, infrastructure, public transport, lots of things that require government funding. We can't afford to give 1 billion to FIFA just for a football tournament. So they ain't hosting anytime soon, and India isn't going to the World Cup anytime soon. And that's just the reality. I wish it wasn't, but it is.
So just adding to that, we have a big population, but we don't have buying population. People who buy stuff, match tickets or say merchandise and everything. So which we have seen in past. European clubs failing on that. They think that they will tap Indian market, but it is not that easy market. So another thing I want to say, it's not just making it to the World Cup. I feel that India need to progress into the next stage of the qualifiers, where we generally get knocked out in the second round, which is the first round for us. We need to qualify to the next stage, and we need to play the big teams, the Japans and the Chinas and the Koreas and the Qatar on regular basis. And then in Asia Cup, we need to also qualify for knockout round, not just the group stage. I think if we can do that in next, say, 2 editions, next 10 years, then I think we can make we can make a late push for 2036 or 2034. Sorry.
and the two things that are required to do that are to get more players out of India into better leagues, and also as well for the Indian national team to play more of those top 10 teams in Asia. And by the way, it's very easy to do. It's very easy to arrange fixtures and friendlies against the top 10 teams in Asia. This is the problem.
But we don't arrange any normal friendlies. If talking about top 10 is something distant dream for us.
Ashish, India, if they really wanted to, could play Brazil and England and Germany in every single opportunity for a friendly if they wanted to. However, here's the issue. All of those teams will require a minimum amount of money to come to India and a minimum standard of training facility and all the rest of it to come to India to play those friendlies. And they're not prepared to pay that. What? India has what is it? The most billionaires in the world? India's not short of money.
That's
You're telling me you can't invite these teams from Asia to come and play because they will not come unless they're in a 5-star hotel, unless they have certain training standards and facilities, and you refuse to pay that?
We have done in past, So it's not that possible. So we have seen Bayern playing against India in Delhi for Viking Bhutia farewell game. We have seen Messi playing in Kolkata, not against India, but another country. We have these moments.
No, but wait, that was different. The Argentina against Venezuela, I was there. I was at the game in the Salt Lake Stadium, sitting next to Baichung actually. That game was privately organized. So it was private funding or private money that funded that game to bring them. It wasn't state money. It wasn't
that's what I'm saying. But that's possible, right?
Money.
But that's possible to do. Yes. If private body can do it, the state can also do it, or the federation can also do it.
Yeah, but they've got to work together. They've got to work together, Ashish, to do that.
I think even not playing Brazil and Germany, if we are fine, if you can play Qatar, UAE, China, South Korea, Australia, these kind of country on regular basis, and because we have to play qualifier against these countries, I think it does not matter if we play against South America or European team, because it matters that we play against Asian teams, because eventually we have to play them during the qualifiers, and if we play them on a regular basis, it might give us some chances to against them during the qualifiers if we face them. So it will help.
Yeah, correct. You will learn something. You will learn something about how your players react to their style of play. You will learn something about the mentality of your players playing against. Just coming back to what I said before, putting players under pressure when you're playing, no disrespect, SAF teams on a regular basis, your players aren't under enough pressure because they're the better team in most cases. So you need players to be put under pressure to find out who can survive and who can't.
So another thing, just to finish this, before we finish the national team thing, Middle East, India have very good fan following. Whenever we play football there, in any of these Middle East countries, UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, we get lots of Indian people coming onto the stadium to support us. Do you think India need to explore more for the training purpose? Instead of going to Europe, they can come to, and play some type of friendlies there. We will get crowd support also.
Yeah, it's a great idea, Ashish. Absolutely great. Because you're absolutely right. I was at the game in Oman, in Muscat. I went to both the Bangladesh game and the Indian game. Now, the Bangladesh game, they had just opened the doors and they never expected half the stadium to be Bangladeshi fans. It was amazing to see. Now, they restricted the number of fans for the Indian game. It eventually filled up, but it took a long time, to fill up. And I know there were a lot of restrictions. I know that for the Bangladeshi fans, I don't think they were charging for tickets, if I remember, but for the Indian fans, they did charge whatever it was.
And it was a limited number of tickets, by the way, for Indian fans.
There were a limited number of tickets as well. But I'm sure that if they'd done the same thing as Bangladesh, then, there would have been maybe just as big an appetite. I didn't know this at the time, but I found out afterwards. So, yes, it's a great idea because you have a huge Desi population. Here in the UAE, you have a huge Desi population. Can you imagine going and playing a game, for example, against the likes of South Africa in Durban? There's a huge Desi population in Durban and in South Africa in general. So you could go and play a couple of games in South Africa. So it's a great idea. And the training facilities, I know certainly the training facilities here in the UAE are fabulous. They're absolutely fabulous. Premier League teams comes and train
to UAE for
winter.
Hot weather.
For their winter break. So there's nothing wrong with the standards and the quality. It's not very far. It's a couple of hours flight. And of course, they get all the support because there's a lot of Indian business here as well that would facilitate them. So yeah, it's a great idea.
Yeah. So wrapping up the national team, let's move towards I-League and tell us something about your experience of commenting on early days of I-League. Many of our viewers might not be watching Indian football that time, but I remember watching Kolkata Derby with you and Baji on the commentary box. And just tell us how was that experience, coming from outside to India to cover Indian League.
I wanted to do more of it, but just going back to what I said earlier on in the interview, there wasn't a huge appetite for putting production value into I-League games at that point in time. But Carlton, Budgie, myself, we thoroughly enjoyed our time in Calcutta for the derby match. And the thing as well was, at that particular time, it was the stadium before it was renovated. So yes, it wasn't the best stadium, but it was very full. I can't remember exactly. I think it was maybe 90, 95,000. So it was a great atmosphere. And I have to be honest with you, Ashish, and say that I would probably put that particular match experience from a broadcast point of view in my top 5 ever that I've done. And I've done games at the San Siro in Milan. Obviously the 2 Clásicos last season from the Bernabeu and from Camp Nou. So yeah, I'd put it right up there with my footballing experiences. I thoroughly enjoyed it. The atmosphere, it's like electric. And I'm amazed that, I know it's been difficult. I know there's a lot of politics involved, but I'm amazed that they didn't make more effort to get Mohun Bagan and East Bengal involved in the Indian Super League earlier. It's a bit of a shame that, because you have this ready-made, traditional, true, real footballing passion over there.
Hopefully, maybe by next season, we will see them now together in ISL. So Mohun Bagan has come into it. I think East Bengal.
And I think it's great. I think it's great that Mohun Bagan are involved. I've said this before. I wish they'd get rid of the ATK name.
Yeah,
ATK was set up for a reason. That name, Atletico de Calcutta. It's because of the joint venture with Atletico Madrid. Well, that joint venture ended years ago. So, why are they still carrying that moniker? I don't know.
But talking about the merger, Mohun Bagan fans, there was a demand of their, retain that traditional green and maroon and their logo colors and all. Everything is retained other than just putting the 80K before the name. So I think, do you think they got the fair deal of this merger?
Yes, and I'm proud of them for doing that. I'm proud of whoever was involved in making those decisions to keep the logo, to keep the ship in the logo,
Colors of the jersey.
The colors of the logo. I think have done a great job, and it was a good idea as well, because you got to remember, Montbegan is one of the oldest clubs in the world.
Yeah,
they're older than Juventus and Liverpool. So you need these legacy clubs. Why does everything have to be thrown away? Don't start me, Ashish, on the IFA Shield. No, seriously, don't start me on the IFA Shield. What they've done with the IFA Shield is just scandalous, in my opinion. But anyway, I'm not going to talk about that. That's another conversation for another day. Yeah. But, there's so much rich history of Indian football. Unfortunately, a lot of it was lost during the 80s, but certainly the 50s, 60s, 70s. There's a tremendously rich background and legacy to Indian football that should be used and should be played upon and should be embraced, and it's not.
Sadly, not many people know about it, or not many things is available on the internet to know about it. Like some books have come on now in recent years, which have been putting some information to the people. But still, I think young fans, I think they also need to look back into the history. Like I did, when I started watching Indian football back in 2008, I started studying what happened in 1950, why did not went to World Cup, what happened in the Asian Games, Olympics and all. And before I made this journey towards Indian football. So I think we have a rich history, but it need to be told, right? It need to be taught to the new fans.
Yeah, so there's nothing wrong with the history. There's nothing wrong with the legacy. The issue I have, Ashish, is the organizational aspect of those clubs needs brought into the modern era in a big way.
Yeah,
there are still too many dinosaurs. These little short pot-bellied men that are on these committees making decisions in Indian football, and it's not acceptable. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't care about the players, and that's a really important thing for me. The players are your biggest asset, and they don't treat them as assets. They treat them like slaves. They treat them like dogs in certain parts of India. That's the bit of Indian football that needs modernized, is the decision making at some of these clubs.
Yeah. So overall assessment of success or failure of I-League since it rebranded in 2006, because you have been part of it and you have seen after that also you left India. So overall, did you feel I-League did justice in which rebranding happened in 2006? I think earlier it was very good success, crowd-wise, marketing-wise, telecast-wise, from 2006 to 2008-9.
Yeah, I mean, I'm scared. I'm really scared, Ashish. I'm scared about the future of the ISL because we're talking about history there. There's one or two people who are watching this, Ashish, who should go and Google on the internet the Major League Soccer in its first incarnation back in the 80s. Now, all of the fireworks and dancing girls and all that kind of thing, okay, great, but that's not sustainable for you to commit a league for the entire future for the next 100 years. I don't care how much of the glitz and glamour and Bollywood stars and all the rest of it you have at the games. The talent is on the pitch. And if you do not encourage that talent, and if you do not nurture that talent, and if you do not look after the costs as well, ISL could go the same way as the Major League Soccer did, MLS. Did I say MSL? MLS.
MLS.
Back in the 1980s, which went bankrupt. The league went bankrupt because you got to remember, they're businessmen and women who were involved in Indian football. And at some point they go, you know what? We're sick of losing money. We need to make money. And most of them still don't realize, Ashish, the only way to make money in Indian football is from player trading. That's the only way to do it. There's no TV money. Sponsorship is tiny. Obviously, they're going to lose a lot in terms of gate receipts this season because of the COVID. But even so, ticket sales were not the bread and butter. They were not the bulk of the money being brought into a club. And then you were paying out these ridiculous wages. No wonder most of the owners of the first season of ISL are no longer involved in ISL. They're not stupid people, they're smart people.
They're businessmen.
They're businessmen. So
they will look for cut their losses short, if they're making losses again in the game.
So it has to be sustainable. So you're talking about I-League back then. It wasn't sustainable because they couldn't set up a marketable product that TV companies, that sponsors, that advertisers would buy into. Now, it was just starting to change with the advent of Bengaluru. And I still think Bengaluru is the model on which all other Indian football clubs should be built. And yes, there was a little bit of luck involved. Ashley Westwood was just the perfect pick at the perfect time. I still can't believe that Ashley Westwood is not involved in some way, shape or form in coaching in Indian football, what he brought to Bengaluru. I mean, where else? Tell me where in European football would someone like Ashley Westwood, a contemporary of his in European football, deliver as much success as he did and change the way football as a professional outfit was done, and then not have another job in Indian football except for his short stint as an assistant to Teddy Sheringham, was it?
Yeah, in as a technical director kind of role, I think.
Yeah, that's totally crazy. That's totally crazy. I think he was that bad, was it?
No, but Ashley also thought that, he tried his luck outside, then came back. And by that time, in those 1-2 years, situation in Indian football coaching started changing. Clubs started moving from English coaches to Spanish coaches. So then I think club thought that, say Bangalore, Bengaluru moved to Spanish coach, Goa moved to Spanish coaches. So I think that also did not play in the favor of Ashley Westwood. And that was my question, how was the influence of the foreign coaches, especially Spanish or the English also, which came into Indian football in the last 5-6 years? We have seen Owen Quayle, we have seen somebody like Sergio Lobera doing well at Goa, Ashley Westwood, now Carlos Codet at Bangalore, Albert Roca. So do you think bringing these professional coaches has helped in Indian football in the last 5-6 years?
Yes, without question of a doubt, it's helped. Obviously, John Gregory won a title, Carlos Quadrat won a title, Sergio Lobera won a title, didn't he? Albert Roca, did Albert Roca win a cup?
He won the cup. I think Lobera did not win the title. He just finished top of the table, or the second in the table with Goa.
Oh yeah, before the playoffs, was it?
Yeah, he was sacked.
Before the Mickey Mouse part. Have they improved it? Yes, of course they have. But I come back to what I said earlier on, which is that, they're trying to deliver some success for the team in a very short space of time. And what I'm interested in, and this is what you had with Bengaluru and Ashley Westwood in the I-League incarnation, you had a setup which allowed Ashley Westwood to improve the standards of the Indian players. That is important. Whereas, like you said, some of the, this league is too short, there's not enough games, and there's not enough coaching going on. It's just about getting a team out onto the field of play and playing a set of tactics which allow you to win the match. That's the most important thing. I think, and Sunil Chetri will probably admit this, look at what Ashley Westwood did for Sunil Chetri when he first came. Do you remember the furore? Do you remember the outcry when Sunil Chetri
was put on the left wing,
brought as this star to Bengaluru and didn't play the first, 3 games, 4 games, something like that?
And when he started most of them on the left wing instead of the centre forward or striker position.
He played the left of a 3 and all the rest of it, because Ashley Westwood recognised at that time that he needed a bit of work on his game and his fitness and all those kind of things to play in a particular style. But not all the credit should go to Ashley Westwood. The credit should go to number one, Ashley Westwood. The credit should also go to Sunil Chetri for having the humility to accept that coaching and realise that the coach had his best interests at heart. And the credit should also go to the likes of Manda Tamame and Parth Jindal for supporting Ashley Westwood as well as owners. Because how many owners in that situation, Ashish, would have just gone, we've bought this superstar player, you have to play him, even if he's not fit or even if he's not tactically aware enough for that position or whatever. They supported him. So they have to be given a round of applause for that. But there's not enough of that in Indian football. There's not enough of those kind of owners in Indian football. There's too many owners which are hire fire, here today, gone tomorrow, don't know what they're talking about. The last person to talk in their ear that gives them advice, and the next thing they're clearing out. anyway.
I think one thing is that ISL club, they need more football people, who understand football. They generally hire a marketing guy, the CEO, and CEO is taking the decision for the footballing.
Stop. Marketing guys. Go back to the first season of ISL.
Yeah,
there were
I understand.
People being hired in positions, CEO, COO, and CEOs, who were, the last time I saw them, were bloggers or online journalists or what? How do you go from being an online journalist to being the COO of a football club? I don't understand that.
And I remember I remember one incident, it was with Mumbai City FC, their marquee player during a flight telling somebody about the same thing, that you can't get success unless you have footballing people running the club, not somebody coming from, say, a particular person coming from other field and running the club. So they say that's not how football is run worldwide. And I think hopefully now, for example, Kerala has signed the sporting director, Carolis. Goa has the director of football, Ravi. He's a footballing guy. Again, just like other aspect of the ISL, these are also changing now. Clubs are thinking, they need a footballing guy to run the footballing operation. Then they have a marketing guy to run the marketing operation, So earlier, I think they did not get much chance to do research or to hire people. But I still feel we need more footballing guy between the owners and the coach or the club playing staff, And we're still lacking on that. Maybe the new generation which is coming up now will fulfill that, but it is not easy to get the job also, You need lots of connection to get those jobs. So hopefully, I think it will also change in next 4 or 5 years. And talking about next 4 or 5 years,
Ashish, I was going to say it's even the same in my industry. I'm seeing people coming into football television who don't really have a passion or care for football. Because if you do have a passion or care for football, you will go and see any football match. I live here in Dubai. I'll regularly go to a local game, obviously not recently because of the COVID, but I'll regularly go and watch a local game just because I want to see live football. Not because I'm working on it. I know people who will have never been to a professional or even semi-professional football match in India. And yet they're talking about it on TV. And you're like, what? How? Just because you're a fan of the Champions League or Premier League or La Liga doesn't make you a football aficionado. It makes you a fanboy, is what it makes you.
Yeah, and that's my point, is watching football games from stadium and watching football game from TV is totally a different experience. And there is a reason why analysts are sit in the top of the stadium to analyze the game during live analyze for their coaches, not from the TV or replay, So
because what happens on television is the camera is following the play. But when you're in the stadium, if you really understand the game and you understand tactically what's going on in the game, what happens off the ball is just as important as what is happening in the zone of play. And you don't see that on a TV screen, which is why you have to go to watch a live match. And it doesn't matter about the standard of it. Just go and watch a live professional match to understand about positional play, tactical play, and what's happening off the ball as well as what's happening on the ball.
And I think it's not just in India, it's globally also. If you see somebody like Thomas Muller, who is a master of off-the-ball movement and off-the-ball play, he's not rated as high as other, who just scored the goal, And I feel during this Champions League run, his performance, even Lewandowski scored lots of goals during the mini tournament also. But I think it's a Muller performance overall, which ticked for Bayern. And talking about Muller, before Flick came, his performance for Bayern was dipping in last 2-3 years. And I think now his fine is Mozo and form back again, He's now somebody you can see putting, shifting Kimmich during the play, center of the pitch. Muller is moving into the right back position, So he's taking those little spaces. And these are the things overall, worldwide also, people don't, value much. They are already fanboys, are fans of the fancy dribbles and the goals and the, not the dirty work which other players do on the pitch.
It's a team game, as Neymar found out last night.
Okay, so now moving from I-League and ISL, let's move towards Indian players. Not many of our viewers knows, and I know this because I know Gurpreet personally, that you played very, very important role of helping Gurpreet from moving from East Bengal, if I remember correctly, to Norway, and it was thorough planning. I think I remember you and Baji watching even the Kolkata derby, the game you were speaking earlier. and how that happened, and just give some thoughts on it, why it is important for Indian footballs to move out. I will also share my experience because I'm also involved in a couple of deals where I felt that players are pulled down to go out, and we will shed more lights, on that. But just more thoughts on Gurpreet from East Bengal days, moving to Norway, training, going to Wigan Athletic for a trial. How did you felt and how did you approach Gurpreet for it?
So yeah, obviously we met Gurpreet at that Derby game, and it was Budgie who, obviously being a goalkeeping coach, had that eye, saw something in Gurpreet that he liked. I think even Gurpreet would admit, and anyone who was following the I-League at that time would say that Gurpreet definitely had talent, but he lacked consistency. And you got to remember, he was still young. So when we went to Wigan, Wigan wanted to keep him for a longer period because we were only there a couple of weeks. They wanted to keep him for a much longer period to evaluate him, to work with him, to coach him, and then to make a decision. But East Bengal didn't want to do that. They wanted him back. But my principle is exactly the same, Ashish, that any player who is at a decent and good and top level in Indian football should leave India. Fact. And anyone who says they shouldn't is talking nonsense. I was going to say a more bad word there because that's how strongly I feel about it. And I think, I'll ask you the question, Ashish, and I'll ask anyone the question who's watching this. Tell me that Gurpreet didn't come back a more improved player.
I've followed his, by the way, reserve team games in Norway. And, I made good friends there. A couple of people working in journalism, a couple of agents also, to just follow what he's doing, and it was not easy earlier. Now with the internet coming on, we're getting more game live streaming, and he came far better, mature as a person also, because living alone is not easy, far from home.
Very
different
tough
situation compared to India. What kind of situation is there in Norway? So of course he came as a better player, and people also don't remember it. I think I will just want to also ask you, when Sunil went to Portugal for Sporting Lisbon, he went very late. Everybody agreed. Sunil also agreed. He went to B team. I think he was there for a year. And when Sunil came back to India, just training with the reserve squad, he came as a far better player, because in Sunil game, if you watch to pre-sporting and post-sporting, there are a couple of things which were added. The flick Sunil was doing, first touch after sporting game, was amazing. It was not there before. He was more of a goal scorer. Also, free kick. I don't remember Sunil taking much free kick before Portugal game, before going to Portugal. And when he came back, he started banging from free kick also. So even as a 26, Sunil started learn some new trades, some new skills.
Correct.
So I think it will happen if more young players go at 18, 19, 20, they will learn more.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, I have heard some people say very unkindly that, and I totally disagree with this, that Sunil's stint at Sporting Lisbon B was a failure. It wasn't a failure at all.
Yeah,
I totally agree with you. He improved massively as a player. And I'll tell you why you improved. You improved because, they say that civilization moves at the pace of the slowest man. Now, the same is true for football culture. If you are in a squad of players who are as good as and better than you, and particularly better, you will raise your standard. If you're in a squad of players of players who are worse than you and lower than you, you will drop your standard. That's just a fact. So when they go to these teams like Sporting Lisbon B, like when Gurpreet went to Norway, he was amongst a squad of players who were better than him, and he raised his level, he raised his game. And that's why he came back a better player. So here's the thing about players going out. There are now so many hurdles to players going out of India. And the primary hurdle is advisors and money. And the two are connected together. So what you have now is you have an abundance. There's been an explosion of agents, football agents in India. Most of them don't know what they're talking about, what they're doing. The ones who do know what they're talking about do not have the best interests of the player at heart. And what I mean by that is it is much easier for them to get their commission in India than it is to take a risk and to take their young player out of India for lesser salary. The salaries, and this is a good thing, by the way, it's not the worst thing that's happened, but it's now becoming a problem. Salaries of Indian players with the advent of the ISL have increased to levels that they should have been for a long time. They're getting paid their worth. The problem is for young players. Why would a young player take a risk to go to Europe, potentially fail in Europe and have to come back? And the shame that comes with that for a lower salary when they can cruise in the ISL for more salary. So that's the challenge. And then you have their advisors that come with it. So an advisor is going to go either directly to the player if the player's old enough and mature enough, or he's going to go to the parents and say, hey, look at this, we can get so many lakh in India, but if that player goes to Europe and plays for, because look, let's get one thing straight. There's no player going to one of the top 5 leagues in Europe tomorrow. It's just not going to happen. There has to be a level of realism. So you're going to be going to one of the peripheral leagues. Maybe he's in Eastern Europe, maybe he's in Scandinavia, or a second division club in one of the top 5 countries, such as a Spain or a Portugal or a France or Germany, whatever. So where's the encouragement for that? Well, when they put their own greed and their own self-interest in that, the players are just young. They don't know. They don't know the answers to life. Did you know the answers to life at 16? I didn't know the answers to life at 16. So you're going to take that advice. And that's what's wrong. It's like, there are certain players in Indian football that should be gone. They should be out. And there's a very small window, Ashish, of age, because clubs in Europe are looking at future value. So when I'm hearing about players that are past the 20 mark and are talking about going to Europe, too late.
Not possible.
Too late.
Not possible. It will be a marketing deal. If
people forget, Ashish, Leo Messi left Argentina at 13 years old. The best player on the planet left at 13 years old. So why do you think, if you're 20 years old, that you can go on and play for Real Madrid? Because all of those steps to make it to the top level requires a year, in my opinion. And I think the steps are minimum 5 steps, 5 levels, if you like. So that's 5 years. So if you go at 20 to get into a position where you are a regular starter at a top European club, and when I say top, I'm talking about a first division club. I'm not meaning Real Madrid or Barcelona. I'm just talking about in one of the, foremost leagues. One of the best leagues. Then it's going to take you 5 to 6 years. So you have to go at 14, 15 years old, not at 20, 21, 25, because by the time you add 5 years to that, you're 30 if you go at 25. If you're 21, 22 and you add 5 or 6 years to that, you're 28. It's too late.
Yeah.
It's way too late.
I was involved in, if I remember, in last 4-5 years since Under-17 World Cup, 4 or 5 deals or discussion with particular clubs from Norway, Sweden, Finland for Indian Youth International. There's a proper invitation sent by clubs to the AFF, to their parent club, to the players for their trial or for the longer period of training. And I will tell you frankly, not out of those 4 or 5, only one player thought, okay, I will go out and give a trial. Most of them were not even told that the club or federation received the offer from this European club. And there was one Finland club who played against Chelsea in the Europa League or Champions League in last 1 or 2 years. They wanted to bring Indian Youth International for a trial. And I will tell you, it's sadly, or it's a joke that player was told not to go. The player agents around them, they are, and another thing is the education. Our players are not somebody who have taken the school education or the college education like the European states.
Ashish, no,
they are not independent enough to take their own decisions. So the other people who are taking decisions on their behalf.
Yeah, but that's not important. And the reason it's not important is most of the players that come out of Latin America come out of the barrios and the slums, and they are not educated either. However, there is already a roadmap from Latin America to Europe, usually via Portugal or Spain in particular, sometimes via other countries. So that roadmap That bridge has already been built. We still haven't, in Indian football, built a bridge from India to Europe. And by the way, it doesn't have to be Europe. It could be other parts of the world. If you don't think a player is good enough to play in one of the top European leagues, Thai league is really tough. The Thai league is really tough. So why don't they go and play in the Thai league?
Yeah. So that's basically my point is, players, they need to also take some risk. And of course, the salary part, the basic salary for 18 or 19-year-old Indian is way higher than what European clubs are ready to pay. And they, of course, will pay the minimum wages. For example, for Norway, I think minimum wage is $2,000, $2,500. And that also is the good money, It's not something we Indians are making in our normal jobs. That's way more than what the normal person in India is making in their other jobs.
Yes, but there's a higher cost of living as well in a place like Norway and many of the European countries.
Yeah. So these players, they did not went for the trials and they are the good clubs, and they wanted to bring them for a long. And I know at least 2 or 3 deals where the club were really interested to sign. And player did not they did not bother to go for a trial, They thought that it's important to seal the ISL contract and we will see next year. And by the time next year, the same player is now 23 or 24. He's playing in the ISL. I can't take the name, but I'm just, And when Gurpreet moved to Norway, and that time I felt personally, it's not something I want to do it for money. I just wanted to hope that more Indian play will go out. And that's how I followed Gurpreet's journey. How he
I
did there.
I thought Gurpreet would break the dam, for want of a phrase. That's what I thought he would do. I thought that he would put that crack in the dam that the flood followed, and then there would be a whole load of others come behind him. But he went and did that in 2012. Was it 2012?
When he went to Wigan?
Wigan was 2012. When did he go? 2014, wasn't it?
Yeah, 2015. He went for trial earlier, then went again for 2015.
Yeah, 20.
And then he had a 1 month trial.
I'm useless with. Yeah, I'm useless with dates.
And then
but anyway,
I got in touch with the Indian origin agent in Norway, and he helped. And he thought that he can also bring Indian player out, and he worked for 3 years, from 15 to 16 and 17 till under 17 World Cup. He spent his own money, come here, meet players, try to understand them why it is important for them to move now instead of when they are 22, 23. And in the end of it, he said to me, bro, in Hindi and Punjabi, told me that, bro, I will not come to India again, and that's enough. I have my business here. I'm a football agent. I have a top players. I have to deal with them. I thought, and because I asked him to help Indian football, and he thought that I can do it. I can bring them to Sweden, Norway, and Finland. He said, no, nobody can bring Indian players out unless they make their mind, and their mind is not made because they are not taking their own decisions.
Because by the way, Ashish, I get asked on a regular basis, you should speak to this player. It's literally, that's how it's said. You should speak to this young talent because he is 18 years old or whatever age he is. You should speak to this young talent because I think you should take him out of India. And I always reply, no. If that young talent is serious and has ambition, he'll come and speak to me. I'm not going to try and waste my time trying to persuade a young talent from India to go abroad. If you do not believe that your game will not be improved by going abroad, then don't waste my time. And I'm sorry to be blunt about it, but that's the way it is. Gurpreet had a desire to go abroad, and not only to go abroad, Ashish, but to stay abroad. Do you know what the average temperature was every time he went back for pre-season training in Norway?
Yeah,
because remember the Norwegian league has a different season. It starts in
they have a
March,
winter break.
Yeah, they have this long winter break, December, January, February. They start their
March.
season in
It
January.
started in March and finished in August or September.
Yeah. No, it finished in November.
Yeah.
They had a month break in July usually. But the season would start, I think it was January, February, March. So the season would start in April and it would run to November.
I remember Gurpreet going on a trial in March for a month-long trial, if I remember correctly. And then he signed in April with Stabaek.
It was a little bit later than that. He signed on National Day, didn't he?
Yeah, so I remember he was there for 1 month trial.
He signed on Independence Day, and I think he was already there about 2 months, maybe. When's Independence Day?
It's in August. I don't think he signed in August. Did he sign?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he signed.
Yeah, so he was there for a couple of months for a longer trial, if I remember correctly.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if I remember rightly, he went in May or June. So anyway, I mean, look, the point of the matter is, it was minus 15 degrees.
And it's not easy
on a regular basis in January when he went for pre-season training. There's not many desis in Oslo. There's not an abundance of butter chicken, in Oslo. If he was going to somewhere like Leicester, for example, there's a lot of desis in Leicester. Yeah. There's a lot of
desis everywhere.
So the climate, the food, the lack of desis. There's not much of a support network. You don't have your friends. You don't have your family.
You have to cook yourself, if you want to eat Indian food.
Gurpreet had that determination, and Gurpreet wanted to do it. And not only did he want to do it, he wanted to stay there. He had that determination to stay there. And I have not seen, and certainly no player has come to me since then. No young player has come to me and said, I want to do the same thing. But not seen it, not heard it.
Are you happy with whatever the outcome of it? Gurpreet becoming first Indian to play UEFA Europa League game, first Indian to captain the top division club, in the official game, not in the friendly. Yeah. So overall that, and then moving back to Bengaluru FC, on a good contract, one of the highest paid Indian players right now in the league. So do you feel that he could have stayed there longer, tried his luck here and there in other leagues, and of course he was not playing as regularly as he wanted. Asia Cup was also coming, so I think that also played its role in the decision. So what do you feel overall, how did you handle that situation?
Yes, so with regards to the thing about the Europa League is that he should be proud of, and I'm very proud of him for this, is he got into that Europa League side out of merit, not because it was some sort of marketing gimmick. He got there, and at that particular point in time, he was pushing, and he was actually starting because the other guy who was the
Cameroon International,
Monday, I think his name was.
Cameroon International, played in the FIFA World Cup also.
Yeah, Ivory Cup International. Yeah. He was just on a bad run of form. He'd made a lot of mistakes, and Gurpreet had been performing well in the cup games
and the reserve games also.
Yeah, had just started to get into a position where he was like going to be the first choice goalkeeper for Stabaek, and there was some rumor that Sayuba may have been leaving in that particular summer window anyway.
Yeah.
So things were just starting to look good, but then you need a bit of luck as well. He broke his hand. That changes everything. He broke his hand in that Europa League game. I remember him sending me the X-ray. So, there was a bit of bad luck as well. But the thing is, no one can take that away from him. But that's not what I judge him on. If you understand football clubs, and football clubs in particular in Europe, Ashish, contracts tell you everything about the trust that they have for a player. And what I mean by that is it's not just about the amount of money, it's about the length of time, and it's about all of the other clauses that are in that contract. So the contract that was given to Gurpreet was not 1 year plus extension, or 1 year plus an option, or 2 years plus an option. It was a 3-year deal.
Yeah.
And it was a straight 3-year deal. So there was no ifs or buts about it. It wasn't a fudge. And I see some contracts and deals done now where, the agent or whoever will try and make out that it's some special deal. It's not a special deal. It's the club doesn't trust the player. So therefore, we're going to pay him for 1 season, and then we'll see what happens.
1 plus 2, these kind of deals.
1 plus 1, 1 plus 2, all of those kind of things. So Gurpreet never had that. It was an actual 3-year deal, which showed you how much trust and faith that they had in him at that time. Now, like I said before, the salaries weren't huge, because you got to remember he's coming in as an unproven player, but that's just the way it goes. So, and then all of you think about the money with the ISL, but you're absolutely right. I'd spoken to Stephen Constantine at and around that time, and Stephen Constantine was basically saying, look, I need the players to be back in India if they're going to make it into the first team. Now, I didn't understand that logic, because surely you pick the best players. Let me think of a player. Mark Schwarzer. Mark Schwarzer was playing in England, but his national team is Australia. So what? Because he's not playing in Australia, does Mark Schwarzer not become the national team goalkeeper? Is he not the best goalkeeper? Surely it's just the best player in the best position. It's got nothing to do with where they're playing in the world. So there was a bit of pressure on him to come back. And I mean it in many aspects: physical pressure, financial pressure, political pressure. All of those things put together, that was one of the reasons why he came back. Because yes, it was the build-up to that. So
Asia Cup.
Yes, to the Asia Cup, and to force his way into the national team. But what Gurpreet has done is phenomenal. I'm just disappointed, like I said, that more players didn't follow. And let's be realistic here, and Gurpreet will be realistic with you as well. Gurpreet is not going to go on and be the goalkeeper of Real Madrid, after Stabaek or whatever. But he's moved the Indian football frontier further forward, and that's what every single one of us should be trying to do. You, me, coaches, Igor Stimac, Gurpreet, Sunil, whoever it is. If you look at anyone involved in Indian football, that's the question that should be asked. Are you moving the Indian football frontier forward? And if the answer to that is no or a maybe, get out of my way. I'm not interested. Go away. So did Stephen Constantine move the Indian football frontier forward? Yes, he did. Are some of these agents moving the Indian football frontier forward? Have they got a talent in their stable that they're just going, you know what? You just cruise here in third gear. Or does this player have the ability, but they need pushed and they need advice to go out, they need advice to take a risk? There is no shame whatsoever, Ashish, in going and Stalin. I hope he's a success in Portugal. There is no shame. But even if he's not a success over there and he fails and he comes back after 1 year, I will be the first person to applaud him when he returns to India. And good luck to him.
He will come back as a better player for sure.
He will come back as a better player, Ashish.
And better person also. Developed person. So do you feel the overall as a footballing body or footballing country, India, is not supporting our footballers? Say in case of Gurpreet, the demand of Stephen, because I remember Gurpreet making those trips for the friendly games because European clubs don't release the players as early as the Indian club. So Gurpreet was traveling, from one continent to another continent, and he was not playing the games. I remember Subroto Paul starting ahead of him, and sometimes we also felt, this is harsh on him because he was playing for the reserve league in Norway, I think, which is maybe at the same level or same level above the I League. I think it's way above the I League.
Same level, Ashish. Same level. Someone who's never watched the reserve league in Norway, or the first league in Norway or whatever, I can honestly say the reserve league in Norway, because I went and watched a lot of reserve games, especially when Gurpreet was playing. The reserve league in Norway at that time, in comparison to the I League, would be 5 or 6 levels above the I League.
Yeah, so which was sad, right? And then still not making to the national team.
And still, because the national team was still in this kind of no man's land. So you remember the Bob Houghton days. Now, Bob Houghton, as the national team coach, would have the Indian team together for 3 months.
Yeah.
And now the reason he had to have the Indian team together for 3 months was because their levels of fitness were appalling and were all over the place. You'd get one player who was quite fit, most of the players who were unfit. So he used to do these 3-month camps. And that's what Stephen Constantine was trying to do in his early days. He recognized the same issue. He recognized that there was a huge difference in levels of fitness. And so he was trying to get this squad together as early as possible to try and put some levels of fitness into them. It's very difficult to make a player fit in a short period of time. It takes months to get players up to speed and to have that level of match fitness. So, they wanted Gurpreet to join up with the squad on the first day. But as anyone watching this may or may not know, there are FIFA rules about the windows in which players can be released. There are specific dates, actually, that FIFA allow players to be released. Well, Stabaek, he was there at that time. He was their second choice keeper. They needed Gurpreet in case the first choice keeper, because a goalkeeper is in a contact position. You know, someone can hit him, can knock into him, can, in Gurpreet's case, in the Europa League game, break his hand. So, you know, all of those things can happen. So they're not going to give away their backup goalkeeper just because Stephen Constantine wants to make the squad fit. And remember as well that he's a goalkeeper. So it's a different type of fitness. It's more sort of explosive up-down plyometric fitness than it is cardio fitness that a goalkeeper needs. So, yeah, he was under a lot of pressure at that time, a lot of pressure, but especially political pressure, which is crazy because they couldn't see the big picture, Ashish. The big picture is, you know, the player that is currently your number one goalkeeper in India, bar none, by the way, and I'll tell you why bar none, and I'm not saying that because I'm biased, I'm saying that because go and look at his stats from just last season, never mind the season before, the Golden Glove. There was teams and players were even trying to manipulate the Golden Glove competition, you know, because they'd worked out that the average percentage was based on clean sheets and saves per minutes, and if they played less games, it pushed your percentage up, you know, whereas Gurpreet was playing all the games and was still delivering on being the best goalkeeper. And then, of course, they changed the rules, didn't they, where you had to have played a minimum number of games in the course of a season to qualify for the Golden Glove and the percentages. They were trying to manipulate that with what's his name? Anyway, it'll come back to me. They tried to manipulate that. But anyway, so, you know, it was a challenge. It was tough for him. And I don't think anyone realizes how tough it was for him to put all of that pressure on him in a situation that was not of his making. You see what I'm saying? Yeah.
So, Joe, you were speaking about Gurpreet Singh Sandhu, his move to India, coming to Bengaluru FC, getting the Golden Glove, how tough was for him. So can you also tell, there was a talks of having a Portuguese offer while the time he joined Bengaluru FC, there was a Portuguese club interested in him, but eventually the playing time which made the decision for him, you know, that he wanted to play before the Asia Cup, to get his spot for Asia Cup. So can you tell about that?
Yeah, I mean, it was just a case of running out of time because the window, the transfer window closed at the point. It was going to be a very complex deal, but the transfer window closed and it just ran out of time for him to be able to, for the reasons we spoke about earlier, to be involved in India, to be close to the Indian setup, as in the national team setup. But we just ran out of time. It was as simple as that. Because the deal was going to be that he would go to Boa Vista and that he would be loaned to Bengaluru. But it was going to be too complicated to do both of the things in what was literally, I think the whole thing happened in 48 hours, maybe, something like that, before the window closed. So it was just too difficult to do.
So before we wrap this part, there's a question which I have personally. Did Bengaluru FC paid any transfer fee to get the signature of Gurpreet Singh from Stabaek FC?
That is information that I can't give you.
Okay. So now moving to our next topic. What do you think is the Indian football need to do in next 2-3 years to make that rapid progress we are talking about? The progress is there, but it is very slow. So what do you think are the two or three important points we need to change or do in next 3 years so that we can move forward quickly?
Some of these things, Ashish, I've touched on already, so I'm just repeating myself. One is they must have a longer season. Must have a longer season. Because of the number of games that we already spoke about. If you go to the end of the league campaign, it's 18 games or something. Yeah. If you go to the final, it's only 21 games. That's just simply not enough for not only the players who are regular starters, but we are trying to encourage talent to come through as well. So that talent needs time. It needs 10, 15 minutes at the end of a game to feature. Or if they're going to start a game, some upcoming talent, then you need them, 18 games is not enough, in which case a coach is going to take a risk. So that's number one. Number two is my belief of the 15 years that I've been following Indian football. My belief has not changed, Ashish. get the best players out. And I'll say not just best players, Ashish, out of the country, to much better leagues to go, and if need be, to go and fail and come back. They'll still come back better players. But also the coaches as well. I mean, don't get me started, Ashish, on referees. The refereeing standards are so shockingly bad in India that it is now a joke. And in some cases, I watch matches and I'm actually looking at the game and thinking to myself, is this referee so incompetent, or is this referee in some way, shape or form doing something which is, that's conducive to manipulating this match? I have to be careful with my words. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, because the errors are that outrageous that I would be looking at it and going, either you are so bad, and I mean so bad as a referee, or you're trying to manipulate the outcome of this game. So whichever one it is, it's just not acceptable. But coming back to the coaches themselves, you know, everything is about raising your standards. And like I said before, being in that football environment, Ashish, where you're surrounded by better people. So these coaches should be going and joining teams in Europe as youth coaches or as assistant coaches to learn their trade, and then to come back to India and to implement that, because the coaches aren't improving. And I'll tell you why it's important, because number one, if you do not know what talent looks like, how can you choose talent? And I'll give you a little anecdote, Ashish. I was in Bombay, this is many years ago. I was at the Cooperage, or a piece of ground near the Cooperage, and they were doing some selection trials for, don't quote me on this, Ashish, but I think it was about the under 12 age group, if I remember rightly. Okay. It was either under 12 or under 13. So I just went along. I had the afternoon off, so I went along to have a look at what they were doing. And they had a couple of guys, a bunch of 7-a-side games, 15 minutes each way. They were just putting the teams out, assessing the players, and they were picking out any players that needed to be selected and go on and progress. So as you well know, and anyone who's been to that patch of ground, the ground's really bad. It's really rough, uneven, not good for football. So I went to watch one of the games, 7-a-side, 15 minutes, and they selected as their player, their star player, that was going to be, like American Idol or X Factor, the guy who was the young kid who was going to go on. They selected a striker who had banged in 2 goals. I forget how many he scored. 2 goals, 3 goals. Now, this striker, either there was an age fraud situation, I don't know, or the striker was just big for his age and he was bullying the opposition defence, so it was very easy for him to score because the difference in height and power was chalk and cheese. However, on the same team, there was a defender who was not the biggest, left foot, right foot, on the worst piece of ground to play football on that I've seen in a long time. Under pressure, he was so comfortable and so composed. Now, I'm not a coach, and I've never been a scout, and I don't know the difference between good talent and bad talent. But I have watched, probably 6,000 games of my career so far at the top level. So I know the difference between a donkey and someone who has got something about them, yeah? Would they go on to play for Real Madrid? I don't know. I'm not that gifted, and I'm not that experienced in terms of coaching and scouting. But I do know when I can see someone who is comfortable on both feet, which is important in high-level modern football now, and someone who's comfortable under pressure. And he was playing in central defence. Now, they didn't even look at him. They didn't even consider him. So players getting out, get the best talent out of the country so that they can go and further their abilities, even if it's to take them up 1 level, 2 levels, 10 levels, get the coaches out, and if necessary, get the referees out as well, because you can always bring them back. The other thing that I would add on top of that, Ashish, is players of Indian origin. This rule has got to be bloody changed. And the argument I always get back is, yes, but if you put a player of Indian origin into the national team squad, that player is or into a club team, that player is taking the place of a potential young talent. No. You can implement this policy for a 10-year period, for example, and then reverse it if necessary. But in that 10 years, it gives you the chance to develop all of that young talent. You see what I'm saying? And to build up their ability and to build up a strong pool of young talent. And I use the example of Jamal Bhuiyan with Bangladesh. Jamal has become the poster boy for Bangladesh because Jamal is clearly head and shoulders above the rest of the Bangladeshi team in terms of his ability.
Technical players compared to other Bangladeshi players. He's technically very sound.
He's much more technical. He's fitter. He's stronger. You can tell that his football schooling has taken place in a much better country, in a much better league.
And I think
so. Can you
basics
imagine
of football, you can see the difference. Normal player or between him.
Yeah. By the way, Jamal would walk easily into the Indian national team. He'd walk into any SAF team. Anyone. He's the best midfielder in the whole of the SAF region. So, if you bring that player in, if you add 3-4 players, and there's a number of them out there. I can't remember the name. What's the name of the young lad who's at Bayern Munich? He's just been loaned out, hasn't he?
Sarpreet Singh.
Sarpreet Singh, is it?
Yeah.
And you've got Harpreet Singh in Norway.
Norway. Nathan Sansara in England. Ndanda in Swansea.
Danny Bart.
Danny Bart.
It's Stoke, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
He was last Stoke with the Wolves and joined Stoke.
Yeah. So if you have those players in your team, let me tell you now what I was talking about before about going into the top 10 in Asia. They'll be within the top 10 in Asia like that in literally 1 year, 18 months.
Yeah. I think the Indian origin players, that's a different debate altogether because that's in the hand of the Indian government, not in the hand of the federation. But just a quick question, Jamal. Are you surprised that any ISL team has not approached him or not tried to sign him? We've seen Chencho coming to I-League, then coming to ISL. So do you have any message to those ISL team directors or CEOs watching this? That do you think good enough to play? Of course, I think he will be good enough for.
Oh yeah, without question. I think, I wouldn't necessarily blame them. The thing that's probably putting a question mark in their heads, Ashish, is that they don't know what the ruling is going to be in terms of foreigners, because I'm guessing a Bangladeshi is classed as a foreign player.
Yeah.
So if they can get one of the, and this would be great to develop football right across the Indian subcontinent, because someone like Jamal Bhuiyan, from a commercial point of view, if you put him into an Indian Super League club,
for example, 80k Mohun Bagan now,
for example, Mohun Bagan, if you put him into an Indian Super League club, he brings the whole of Bangladesh with him in terms of eyeballs, commercial, marketing. He brings all that with him. So he's a valuable asset in that regard. Why do teams want the Neymars of this world? Well, Neymar's a good player, but he's not the best player in the world. And in my opinion, he's not even the 5th best player in the world. But he brings huge commercial opportunities with him. And Jamal Bhuiyan would do the same. So I think what they should do is the AFC should look at it and say, look, to develop football in the Indian subcontinent, countries like Nepal, countries like Bhutan, countries like Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, for example, is allow those players to be an additional player. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, there were talks of having a quota for South Asian footballers, which will not count as a normal foreigners, but an extra slot for them, for South Asian footballers. Yeah. So I think they were...
And the Indian Super League as well, Ashish, they would benefit from it because it would add eyeballs and then thus revenue as a franchise.
Yeah, I think if you're following MLS model, MLS did same, I think, in USA. If you see, they allowed club from Canada to play into it. Maybe in future they can maybe have one franchisee from Bangladesh or from Nepal, maybe.
Correct.
It's not far, it's a couple of hour flight from a couple of Indian cities. So it's not that you're going too far to play.
And by the way, there's enough money in Bangladesh to back a franchise. Without question of a doubt, there's enough money. Nepal doesn't have as much money probably to back a franchise. Certainly not at the moment anyway. They might.
But they're very passionate fans, I'm sure if any good club come from Nepal, and they can send lots of merchandise because people are very crazy for Nepali football there. Yeah. So just a couple of question more. Do you think it's the right time to remove the salary cap? So ISL has salary cap of 16.5 crores Indian rupees for all the squad. Do you think it's time for that give the clubs opportunity to sign what they want, even if they want to sign 5 crores, 10 crores or 15 crores, and even they want to sign some big players for 25 crores? Does it matter, do you think, on a longer run?
Ashish, that's a great question, and it's a really tough one because I have split feelings on this. So number one is I'm all for an open market, whereby the forces of the market should decide what the salary is. You know, if it's a super talent, Lionel Messi isn't quite on $1 million a week, but he's pretty close.
I think
now, no one would argue that. Sorry?
He's nearly on $1 million on the week now. I think the new contract.
So no one would argue that Lionel Messi deserves $1 million a week. Not only is he the best player in the world, but also he brings huge commercial revenues with him because the whole world loves to watch Lionel Messi. So I'm all for open market forces. However, Indian football is still in its infancy. And for the reasons that I said earlier on, I do not want it to go the same way as the first incarnation of Major League Soccer, where they were throwing around such big salaries. Remember, George Best went to play in America in the early 80s. Pele was there. Beckenbauer went to play. Everyone went there for big salaries, not to enhance the football that was the first incarnation of the MLS back in the 80s. And that was one of the major reasons that it went bankrupt as a entity. So you have to protect the short-term survival for the long-term gain. So removing salary caps, you see the other side of it as well, Ashish, is, you know what? There'll be a few smart people that work out a way around it. So I'll give you an example. When they were trying to really elevate rugby in the UK in the late 90s, as the professionalism took place in rugby, when it went from the amateur era to professional era, they had salary caps as well. But all they did was they were paying a salary to the wife of the player. Yeah, so that's how they got around the salary cap. So who says that they'll not do the same thing?
So I think it's already happening in Indian football also, and there is already acquisition from some fans, say for 80K, that how they're managing to build this squad, you know, in the same budget other teams not able to build. So they had Roy Kushner, David Williams last season playing for them, and there are already question mark on that also. But of course, the word we are told that, you know, they are under the salary cap, so it's on the club how they're managing it. So I think it's open. I think you can also, clubs need to invest in the youth development also. So I think that's the reason they want to limit the spend on the first team, so that club can spend that money on youth development, youth teams, grassroots development also, and academy development also. So I think that's the main reason to put the salary cap. I think let's see how they deal with it going ahead. Another question which I have is,
it's a difficult one.
You have to find a balance between, you know, both the things. And same type of question, do you think it is correct or right time for ISL to implement 3+1 foreigner rules? I think which likely to be implemented from next season. Do you think it's the right time for it to do it, or we should wait, have more foreigners? Okay.
No.
Why do you feel?
And the reason is there will always be a period of adaptation. There will always be a period where some clubs suffer because you immediately have gone to 3+1. But the fact of the matter is, the ISL, the quicker it aligns with AFC rules, the quicker they become part of the AFC. And what I mean by that is being able to compete on a regular basis in AFC competitions. So it's no good being the best team in India because you've got 6 foreigners, and then all of a sudden you have to go and compete in AFC and you struggle because you can only play 3 of those foreigners plus 1. So, you know, what's the point in that? The people aren't looking ahead, Ashish. That's the thing. The most important priority for any club franchise in India should not be the Indian Super League. It should be AFC competition. It should be being the best club in Asia. Why is that important? Well, first of all, from a commercial point of view, it makes, whether it's your brand sponsorship, you're playing against a team in South Korea, it's a huge difference. And also for the Indian players themselves. If the more Indian players that are going out and competing in Asian competition, AFC competitions, such as the AFC Champions League or the AFC Cup, the more they have exposure to the kind of players and the kind of teams they're going to come up against when it comes to Asian qualifiers, which is very important. So, and you want your teams to be successful, but because when I say exposure, I'm talking about minutes on the pitch. Now, if the teams are just simply not good enough, the Indian teams are just not good enough, and they play one game in AFC competition, I mean, normally it's group games, so they'll get a certain number of games. If they only play those and they get spanked in every single one and they get knocked out, that's not exactly a lot of exposure, is it? But if you get past the group stages, or if you get past the qualifiers, or if you get past the knockouts, and as long as you go in that competition, every single minute that they go in that competition is more experience, and it's more understanding of how the game is played at that level. And remember, you've got some pretty impressive teams in AFC competition. Very impressive teams, and some very impressive countries as well.
And I think very impressive foreign players also in Japan, in China. They're good foreigners.
Correct.
And I think if you see in recent times, since rule is changed in I-League used to have 3+1. They also moved to 5-6 foreigners. Indian clubs started struggling in AFC Cup also, by the way. I think you can see the direct implementation of that rule. I-League club also started struggling in AFC Cup and the Asian.
Yeah, but wait a second, Ashish. There's going to be a short-term struggle before there's a long-term gain. And I'll tell you what it's comparable to. And I was reading, rereading, because I read it originally a few years ago, but rereading some chapters in Sir Alex Ferguson's book. You know, he openly admits now, he didn't at the time, but he openly admits now that the mentality and the strategy that he had and his coaching staff had for Manchester United to win the league had to be changed for Manchester United to win the Champions League. You see what I'm saying? So that's the point. It's like, yes, you might lose out in the short term, but long term, you're going to get a better understanding of what is required to compete in AFC competition successfully.
You know, that's what I'm saying. When before in I-League, there was 3+1 for foreign rule. You know, then Bengaluru made to final, East Bengal made to semi-final, and other clubs also made to the higher stage of the AFC Cup. But since the rule is changed in I-League also, I-League now they allow 5 or 6 foreigners in last couple of seasons. Indian clubs started struggling in Asia because we've increased the foreigners in domestically in I-League, and ISL already have more foreigners. And that's how if you see last 2 or 3 year result of Bengaluru, Chennai, Minerva, everybody struggled in AFC Cup. We're not able to qualify to knockout stage also. So I think longer term it will help in Indian football. So we are just about to wrap this. Last question. We know that you're a big fan of Anurith Thapa. I am also one of those. So any other player who impressed you other than Thapa? So a couple of Indian youngsters who you liked in recent time?
Who has impressed me? I always have great things to say about Sandesh Jhingan. However, and Sandesh knows this, however, I think Sandesh is more than capable of performing at a much higher level. And when I say a much higher level, I mean Europe. And I think Sandesh should have left quite a few years ago. I really do. I think he maybe got a little bit comfortable, possibly. I don't know. I don't know what the reasoning behind it was. When I look at Sandesh, I look at someone who has a tremendous amount of ability. I know you were asking me the question about youngsters, but in Sandesh, you wouldn't necessarily class in the youngsters category.
You know, when he break into the scene in 2014, when he was an ISL emerging player, he can play as a right back, left back, right foot, left foot, very comfortable technically also.
His understanding of the game, he's quite quick as well. You know, I just feel he's not operating at his full potential. And that's not, and what I mean by that is, I don't think he's ever been pushed to his full potential. And when you're playing in those European leagues, you get pushed to your full potential, whether you like it or not. You either get pushed by the coaches or you get pushed by your peers because you're surrounded by other players who are just as good and probably better than you in most cases. So you raise your level. Remember what I was talking about before?
Yeah.
So, you know, I think he would be, who else?
By the way, Sandesh has left Kerala and there were talks of him going to Bundesliga 2 club for a trial. But now due to Corona, I think his traveling is not possible.
Yeah, I think you always have to be careful. And, a lot of people were talking about it as if Gurpreet had gone to the moon when he went for his trial at Wigan. Part of the reason for going to the Wigan trial was that, just to prove a point, that getting a trial is dead easy. There are advisors and agents, Ashish, who tell players that I can get you a trial in this country as if it's some big prize, like you've won the lottery or you've won a place in the final of Idol or X Factor. It's nonsense. I can get you a trial, Ashish, no problem at all. Getting a contract, however, or a long-term trial or a loan deal for a season or more is very difficult. Okay. Very difficult. There's two things that really annoy me, Ashish. Two items of bullshit, if you like, in Indian football that I've heard of. One is the trial thing that I was just saying. The other is that trials within India have to be paid for. There's some academies saying that, by the way, if you bring your son for a trial, it only costs so many rupees and, he could be the next potential star. If a club, whether it's professional, semi-professional, or even amateur, wants you and puts you on trial and takes you, you should never, ever have to pay for that trial, ever.
Yeah. So other than Sandesh Shingan, you are thinking about any other youngsters which you have liked in recent time? During the Asia Cup, maybe you watch India from the stands?
My silence says it all. My silence says it all.
I think Indian players need to improve their performance.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not. You're asking me about new players or upcoming players, is what you're asking me about, Ashish. So I'm not mentioning about Gurpreet. I'm not mentioning about Chetri.
Yeah, who are 21, 22, 23. Something like Sahal, Brendan, and these type of players. Yeah, no,
it's.
Thapa is of course the one which you like.
Brandon for me has tremendous ability, but when you're playing some of these teams and you get that game, by the way, he was very impressive in the game that I watched against Oman. Yeah. Very impressive, Brandon Fernandes. In fact, I would say he was probably my man of the match. But here's the thing. If you want a team to be built around that player or any kind of talented player, that player has to be consistent in every formation under serious pressure, playing against any team. And that's the answers that I haven't quite got yet from the times that I've seen Brandon. I see him perform fabulous in one game, and the next game he goes a little bit quiet and is anonymous. So I'm not totally convinced yet about Brandon. He's got ability, he's got playing ability, but I liken him to a player called Omar Abdul Rahman, who is a big star here in the United Arab Emirates.
Yeah.
Now, he's had opportunities to go to France. He's had opportunities to go and go on loan with Manchester City. He hasn't done it. Now, he's the same. When you see him in international competition, or when you see him playing here in the United Arab Emirates, he's got loads of time and space on the ball because that's the nature of the games. When you go to France, it's intense. You go to England, it's intense. You're going to get kicked, or if you don't get kicked, someone is on you. They're right on you, pressurizing you all the time. So, Ashish, now can he play? You understand? Now can he play with the intensity, with the pace of the game? Can Brandon Fernandes deliver that if the game is going up and down the field for 90 minutes? Jurgen Klopp and his Liverpool side won the league with what? Gegenpressing. Gegenpressing requires every member of the outfield to be running and pushing both offensively and defensively for 90 minutes, 90 plus minutes if you include injury time. Can Brandon Fernandes do that? No, not in my opinion. So, you're wanting high intensity players who can go up and down, and they can hit that killer ball. That beautiful little pass, that little piece of magic, The Messis, Ronaldos, even the Neymars of this world can all do that. They can all do that.
So I think...
But Brandon Fernandes, I'm glad you picked him out because he's a question mark for me. I think he's got
I think he need to show more, right? He need to show more that, as you're saying, he can play in specific formations or situation. Also, one thing which I feel, I have been following him under 14 days, and I think coaches are still not sure what is his best position because he's number 10. Neither Lovera or neither Igor Stimac has played him as a number 10. You know, Lovera played him as a left winger. Igor played as a number 8. So I think he's a more of a number 10. But now modern coaches are now moving away from that number 10 formation. You know, we need to be either.
Well, I wouldn't say they're moving away from it. There's certain teams that are still doing it. You know, the name that springs to mind is João Felix at Atletico Madrid. But it's not about that. It's about having the adaptability. There will be certain games where Brandon might have to play wide of a 3. There are other games where he might have to play off the number 9. You have to be adaptable, which comes back to the consistency issue. You know, it's no good for me as a coach if Brandon, when they're playing, let's say, for example, 4-4-2, and he's off the striker, he's brilliant. But as soon as they go to a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3, but let's say 4-2-3-1 formation, he disappears out the game. What is the point of that player? Because he's a talented player. You have to be able to understand and adapt. And it's like Sahal. I mean, he's developed so much his awareness, tactical awareness during the course of this season. Some people only see his ability at his feet. But you cannot just have ability at the feet. And I'll tell you why. Because as he develops as a player and as he becomes a better player and as he becomes the star or the fulcrum of a team, when you go up against opposition, especially in Asian competition, they just shut him out the game. So he has to be smart enough to still contribute to the team when the opposition is focused on him. And you can only do that if you have good tactical understanding and awareness. You can't be a one-man player, a one-man team, on one player. You can't do that. You can't win anything with that.
So that's what happened, the previous season, which ended just now, a couple of months back. Elko did not play him much during the season. And Elko reasoning was that he liked him. He's one of the most talented player he has coached in India. But he felt that he need to learn the tactical side of the game. And he did not play much for Elko throughout the season. And there was complaint from the fans, Now he just signed new deal with Kerala Blaster. He's now after Sandesh left, he is their poster boy. A big deal, by the way, a longer term deal with a release clause. So let's see what he do, in the upcoming season. They want him to perform because I think Kivu might build team around him. He might be given the number 10 spot in the playing 11. So hopefully that he will able to, develop his game this season because he also need to take next step, He is now break in the scene. Now he need to play continuously at a high level so that he can go and perform for India also.
Yeah, and the thing is, what do you do next with Sahal? What do you do with him? He's how old is Sahal? 21, is he?
Yeah, 21. And now sign, I think, long-term deal with Kerala Blasters. So I think he's not going out in decent years now.
Well, that doesn't really mean anything. Neymar signed a 5-year contract and left after 2. It doesn't mean anything, the length of a deal.
No, for Indian players do, because none of the European clubs going to pay any transfer fee for Indian players because, our level is not as good as the Brazilian footballers, for sure.
Yeah, but you've got to always remember the transfer fee is at the behest of the club who owns his registration.
Yeah.
So the club can say, you know what, if Real Madrid come in for you, we can relinquish our demand on the transfer fee and instead ask for a sell-on clause. There might be a sell-on clause in there. So, there's many ways you can construct the deal. It's not just one size fits all. But anyway, that's not the point I was going to make. The point I was going to make was the clock's ticking. A European club is not going to take a 21, almost going on to 22-year-old. Where's the future value, in taking a player from a place like India and hoping, because of those steps that I mentioned earlier on in our interview, it's going to take 5 years to get him in a position. People, go and look at Martin Odegaard. Martin Odegaard came from a reasonably competitive league, which was Norway. He was playing every week in the Tippen League in Norway, which is a very good standard, by the way.
Yeah.
And then he went, and he was playing in that league at 15 and 16 years old. And then he went to Real Madrid and just wasn't ready. He wasn't good enough at that stage. However, he's now gone through all the levels. I think he went to Holland for a period.
Couple of loans.
He's come back. He's with Real Sociedad. He's on loan, at Real Sociedad. Now Martin Odegaard is starting again in a position where he's ready for Real Madrid. But how old is he now?
And I think there are talks of him now.
20?
20. There are talks of him now staying at Madrid this season.
Correct. So you see how it's taken a player like Martin Odegaard, who, how do I describe this, Ashish, was ready. And what I mean by ready was fit enough, strong enough, had enough experience in a top league in Europe, not the top league in Europe, playing regularly at 16 years old. And you compare him with the likes of a Sahal, who has not been playing in a top league, who is not fit enough, strong enough in comparison to his contemporaries, to another 21-year-old who is in a European league, and you expect him to walk straight into the Real Madrid team. It's fantasy. So the thing is that it would take, look how long it took Gurpreet just to be in a position where he was on a level with his peers in Norway. It took him the best part of that 3-year period.
Yeah.
I guess a goalkeeping position is slightly different, but it took him the best part of 3 years to be at that level. So, and that's a goalkeeping position. So imagine an outfield player, you're talking about 4 or 5 years. Just so, if he's 21, 22, you add 5 years to that, Ashish, you're then talking about 27. Too late.
I think Indian players should leave before they turn 20, because eventually we can't sign, European club can't sign
20, Ashish. Indian players should go out at the first legal opportunity, which is 16.
Yeah. No, but they can't sign till they turn 18, by the way, for the European clubs.
But you can leave the country at 16.
Yeah, you can leave the country, you can go on the scholarship, maybe train with the team, play in the academy, but they can't sign any contract with the European clubs. I think UEFA has this rule, Eventually, outside the European Union, they can sign player until they turn 18.
There's ways and means, Ashish.
Yeah, so I know. So thank you, Joe, for taking time out. I think it was very good experience for me, for hopefully for our viewers also, and I hope you enjoyed this. And we're looking forward to when you come to Delhi, maybe next time, to meet and talk and discuss more. Thank you very much. Hopefully, you will be following ISL this season. If it takes place.
Hopefully everyone stays safe and healthy. Ashish, that's the most important thing.
Looking forward to LaLiga games also next season.
Just a couple of weeks, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's on our head now.
12th of September.
Any prediction for LaLiga title next season? Just before we wrap this up.
Oh, you're asking me a really tough question. The thing is, it's about what happens in the next couple of weeks. Barcelona is in an absolute mess. The entire squad's been put up for sale. I think you'd be hard pressed to look past Real Madrid. I think they've got their house in order in terms of the young talent. Yes, they might lose 1 or 2 in the summertime, but the players that are coming through, they've got a very strong side. Atletico can't be as bad as they were last season when you consider the quality that's in that Atletico team.
Yeah.
Sevilla, on the back of their Europa League, you've got to say are a strong side. Bilbao, I thought, was strong last year as well. I think there was a lot of teams underperformed last year. Really
I think it was a situation also because of COVID,
exactly. It was a strange one.
Yeah. So Real Madrid for La Liga. What about Premier League?
Premier League.
Just one team you have to pick.
Oh, just one team. I can't see past. It's Liverpool and Manchester City. There's such a distance between them and the other side. I'm going to flip a coin between Liverpool and Manchester City. Okay. I don't think Manchester City can perform as badly as they did this season.
Yeah.
So, and they were just spectacular the season before. And I think they will add maybe 1 or 2 to their team that makes that difference. So I'm going to go for Man City.
And Champions League?
Champions League is anybody. That's what I love about the Champions League, especially if they continue with the knockout format, which I really like.
I think the UEFA president has said that they will consider this, but not for this TV deal, because TV deal is already done for home and away style.
There's only one thing I think UEFA got wrong is because it was compacted into 1 month because of everything that happened. They should have brought the kickoff times earlier. They kind of ignore us fans in Asia. It's like, there's nothing stopping you from bringing the kickoff times maybe 1 hour or 2 hours earlier.
Okay,
in my opinion, I think they had an opportunity to increase their fan base across Asia. People that would not normally have watched the Champions League, if you'd brought the games just a couple of hours earlier, maybe 3 hours earlier, I think you could have built a much bigger fan base for next season. So I think they got that badly wrong. So
last quick fire question: Indian Super League 2020-21 winner. Who is the favorite for you? Have you been following the transfers which happening as of now in Indian football? The coaches and the players who are coming in particular teams?
I'm going to give you the answer to the league
stage.
Yeah. The league stage, because the playoffs is Mickey Mouse, it's anybody's. I'm going to give you the answer to the league stage. I think ATK Mohun Bagan could be a serious force to finish top of the league. But, and obviously FC Goa is always strong, but what I'm worried about Goa is when you start getting involved in Asian competition, it becomes a distraction. You have that extra traveling and all those kind of things. So, but they're still a strong side, Goa. Still a strong side. Hey, look, I'm going to have to go with my loyalties to Gurpreet and say Bengaluru.
Hopefully. Okay. Thank you very much.
Joe.
Thank you very much for joining in. So it was lovely to speak to you, and I think you gave us all the answer very frankly and very openly, and great to know your thinking behind, So hopefully people will enjoy.
Ashish, can I just say thank you very much? It was a fabulous conversation. And the reason I say it was a fabulous conversation, I've been doing a lot of interviews over the last couple of months. And what I found refreshingly different about this was because it was about Indian football. Everyone wants to know my opinions on world football. But, I don't have very many discussions on Indian football, and I enjoy it. I enjoy talking about Indian football. And I think every opportunity to talk about it for platforms like yourself, we should all be talking about it. The more digital space is used up by people talking football instead of cricket or WWE, the better as far as I'm concerned. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you everyone for watching it. We are looking forward to hosting you in our next episode.